Casino employees of Reddit, what is the worst you have ever seen someone handle a loss? A gentleman at a poker table in the 5-seat unzipped his pants and urinated on the dealer. I never caught the signal the dealer used, but it was effective as all the guys who normally collect boxes from the tables showed up out of nowhere, and removed him from the table like they were taking out the trash. Well, they were. The table broke up so they could clean, the dealer showered and put on a new uniform, and I saw her on the floor again a few hours later. I work in IT, for a casino, and just had to replace a phone that was ripped off the wall and thrown at one of our pit bosses over a bad loss. Dealer for 10 years. Third day dealing, fresh out of dealer school. I am dealing Pai Gao tiles, Asian domino game, try to get pairs and tiles to add up as close to 9 as possible, on a $25 minimum game. The guy bets $25 to $75 for a good 2 hours. He then slides his whole stack on one hand for $3K. For those who know the game, he gets Teen Dai Bo. I pull Ji Jun. For those who do not know the game, it's like he got pocket kings and I got pocket aces. Or he pulled a 20 in blackjack and I just pulled 11 cards to make 21. The odds are astronomical. It's the only hand that beats him. He slams his fist on the table swearing in Chinese, chips fly everywhere, and begins to shove his finger down his throat. He self-induces vomit all over my game. Close the table and pit down for cleanup. Third day dealing. Money/benefits are great though. Highly recommend the industry. Made 30 to 40 an hour. Table games dealer here. I work at a casino in New Zealand. Had a Thai woman a few months ago betting 300K a hand. She lost 12 million at my table in less than an hour. The casino then paid for her private charter jet to Melbourne and back, $70,000, so she could get more money. Not exactly sure why she had to go to Melbourne to get more money, but I was doing a 16-hour shift and she came back to my table after her trip and dropped another 15 million. Haven't had anyone close to spending that much money ever. She would also flash herself at dealers, for luck, and requested only young white dealers. Almost all baccarat dealers at my casino are Asian, so I had to deal with her every night for 10 days. I actually did work in a casino in Las Vegas a few years back, in VIP services. One of our high rollers, who visited frequently, had a very bad gambling problem that his wife was divorcing him over. He lost everything at the tables and couldn't even afford his plane ticket back home. He threatened to go to the roof of the hotel and throw himself off. The casino felt so sorry for him that we ended up buying a ticket back home for him. Never heard from him again after that. Edit. Yes, it did actually happen. It was a brand new casino, so I am sure they didn't want to risk just ignoring his threats. Also, no one made him gamble. Vegas was not built on winners. I would imagine in a situation like that the casino rather just send the guy home. A potential suicide in their casino is not something they want to deal with. Obviously, you can't just claim you lost everything and threaten to kill yourself to get a free return ticket, but in the right situation, I can see how it makes sense for them. Former table dealer here. I've had drunk guys tell me I'm the worst dealer ever, I suck, etc. I would just reply, have a nice day. The other people at the table were generally on my side. I've higher rollers slam the table with their fist or not react at all to losing thousands. The worst and the saddest one that sticks in my mind is a guy who was around $2,000 down on blackjack. He was nice. He was tipping pretty well. I was rooting for him, as I tended to do. I knocked his tens for good luck. Then he lost a big one and just yelled "FUCK" so loud that the entire casino must have heard it. It was the kind of desperation in his voice and everything about him that told me he could not afford to lose as much as he just lost. He went to the ATM, and I rotated to another table. It was shit like that, the goddamn smoke in my face, sleep deprivation from the late nights that led me to get out of there. A lot of other unpleasant moments too, but they all blur together. Money was nice, but it wasn't for me. Just out of curiosity, roughly how much do dealers make? 40 or 60K per year. Depends on full-time status first and foremost. Then most casinos split tokes for the table games dealers. Poker dealers usually keep their own tokes, but the ceiling is much higher on what you can make. I've heard of a few making 100K per year, but that means working full 8 to 10 hour shifts 5 days a week and not leaving early. Signing the EO. Was a waitress in a casino establishment 10 years ago. Suicides were not common there, but they did happen. Saddest was an Asian woman who hung herself in the toilets. She lost 20K or so from memory and was not a high roller type. 3 to 4 days later her car was to be towed from the underground car park. Sadly she had left her 2 fluffy dogs in there and nobody knew. Poor things were dead. The establishment then put on parking patrol officers who checked cars every few hours. They would find, alive, dogs and kids in there far too often sleepy. I quit after 6 months as was tired of watching miserable zombies. I once sat in the car for upwards of 10 to 12 hours or so while my dad gambled at the casino. Things were rough growing up and I often remember him and my mom getting into arguments over his gambling. The worst it got was when he gambled away rent money, already behind in the first place, and we got evicted. And no, that didn't stop his gambling, unfortunately. I for one, can't stand to step foot in casinos. My mom used to do that too. The worst it got was when she rounded up my and my sister's Christmas presents, went and pawned them, saying it was for bills, and then I sat in the car for 9 hours straight while she lost it all. Edit. Thanks guys, and while I really appreciate the kind thoughts, this was like a 2.5 out of 10 for shitty things that have happened to me. In answering your questions, she still has problems, but mostly stopped after she failed her first suicide attempt. I'm so not well adjusted, but in therapy and on meds, so I've got that going for me, which is nice/mild s. Everyone has their own traumatic experiences. This one, while sounding horrific, was not that bad. I had a book, and a lady in the park next to us held up a towel so I could crouch to wee on the ground. No lasting harm was done. My girlfriend's grandfather won it big one night and then was followed home by 4 people and killed for the money. So that's the worst way I've seen someone handle a win. Worked as a security guard on the night shift. The biggest losers are in a fantasy land where they don't even notice. Never actually saw addicts get worried about the future. I used to be a casino host on cruise ships' casinos. Seen many people lose their shit, but there is one woman that I'll never forget. She was gambling a lot. Towards the end of the cruise I would find her on the slots. She was crying and playing. I asked her what was wrong and she said, I cannot afford to play anymore. This is all on my credit card, talking/playing/crying at the same time. I banned her from the casino, but it was already too late. I also heard stories from colleagues who used to work for an Asian cruise company that they always would keep one lifeboat half lowered because Chinese people would jump overboard after losing all of their money. Worked in the cage before becoming a dealer. The saddest thing I used to commonly see was people getting cash advances of $15 and paying a $7.99 fee to do it. It was $7.99 to get up to $100, with $15 being the minimum. They would pay a 50% vig to piddle away $15. I guess they thought that big jackpot was just around the corner. Sad. I was security at a casino for a few years. The saddest story for me was this older gentleman, let's call him Tom, for privacy's sake. Tom would frequent the casino every day, spending anywhere from $200 to $300. I had struck up lots of conversations with him because he was a regular and he was genuinely kind person who I enjoyed seeing. One day Tom comes in and I can tell he is upset. I don't make anything of it, but after seeing the guy for almost a few years almost every day, that day he looked really off, so a couple of hours go by and I track him down and ask, how's the day going? Any big wins? Just general chit chat. He starts sobbing, tears running down his face. His wife had passed away from sudden cardiac death, is what I believe he called it, the night before, and he was devastated. We talked for quite a while. I tried comforting him while he played the machines. I had noticed he was betting extremely large, $200 to $300 per spin on the slot machine. I knew that was a lot for him, but I didn't say anything because it's not my business and I was sure it's a coping mechanism for him at the moment, doing something he loved when he just lost the love of his life. Hours later I saw him heading out the door. I run up to him, caught him, and wished him all the best and that I'd see him soon. He smiled, said thanks for the chat and thank you for the condolences, and left. He booked a room in our hotel and killed himself that night. A little while later I found out through some other staff who were sort of friends of his family, that he had spent all of his money, every dime that evening, spinning high limit on the machines. I'm assuming because he wanted a little enjoyment before he took his life. Still makes me upset I didn't invite him over or do anything else because I knew he was in pain. Work casino, EMS and security. Horsemen commit suicide. They're all alcoholics, so at least one drinks themselves to death every year, and they like to stab each other. Drove a car into the casino wall. Not the doors. The wall. The driver had a traumatic brain injury and luckily didn't injure anyone else. Left the casino, got drunk/high, drove through someone's house, and killed them. Suicide by shotgun in the parking lot. Punch a machine and break that giant touchscreen? Those are $5,000 to replace. That could make you a felon. People OD in the bathrooms. A lot. People get so desperate they will wander up and down the aisles looking for pennies left on the machines. I was at a bar once when a guy got mad and punched one of the video lotto machines. It broke, and our bartender was pissed. It was our regular hangout and it wasn't crowded at all. We watched the guy walk across the bar and out the door. Our bartender tried to stop him but called the cops. We learned that intentionally breaking those lotto machines is very, very bad. We also learned that happy hour and being an eyewitness to a crime didn't mesh well. Not one of us agreed on what the guy was wearing or what he really looked like. Good thing they had cameras. Not a casino employee. But just the other day my father-in-law, security, watched an elderly lady lose everything at a poker table, and then go around and steal a couple of people's purses/wallets. When they confronted her and asked for ID, she wouldn't give it to them because they weren't the police. When the police arrived, she still wouldn't give them her ID or even her name, saying they couldn't arrest her if they didn't know who she was. Needless to say, they arrested her anyway. The last thing the cop asked her was, "Are you at least going to cooperate and walk out with us to the car, or are you going to do it the hard way?" They had to carry her out and she was kicking the windows in the back of the car the entire time. Edit, she was 63. I sat next to a guy. He drove a Pepsi truck. He said his mom died and left him $30,000. He'd never seen this much money before, so he thought he could turn it into $100,000. We're at the blackjack table. He's getting wasted and crying inconsistently BC of his mom, talking about her dying. The cocktail waitresses are cock-teasing him the whole night and he tips them $1.25 for every drink. In 2 hours he loses everything. He has this look of nervousness on his face and says his wife is going to kill him if she finds out about this. BC they have 4 kids and want to buy a house. He walked out, and 10 minutes later I went to my car and saw that he had a DUI. In 24 hours, his mom died. He gets a ton of money, loses it all, will probably get divorced, gets a DUI, and is sitting in the back of a cop car with blue balls from the cocktail waitresses. Edit, I don't know if his mom died the same day he got the money. I didn't ask him about that. This was like 15 years ago. I watched my uncle lose everything at a poker table, so he proceeded to the bathroom, came out with his pants off, threw them on the table, and said, "Pants please." The dealer said, "We can't take your pants, sir." He said, "Why not? You've taken everything else." Needless to say, he was escorted out of the casino very upset. Edit, blackjack table, not poker table. Not an employee, but my girlfriend and I were at a local casino for dinner on Saturday, so we decided to take a lap around the playing floor afterwards. We are walking by the blackjack tables and notice a small crowd around a guy who has a pile of chips in front of him. After it's clear he lost it all to the dealer, he starts screaming that he couldn't lose and begins to slam his head into the table. Ends up leaving in handcuffs. I've seen a lot of bad behavior at tables. One guy flipped a table after a particularly bad night. One regular would tear cards in half every so often, but only on the last hand of a shoe. A fellow dealer was spit on, multiple times, in 2 separate incidents. First of 2 that happened to me personally. A regular in our high-limit pit was playing 2 spots at a private blackjack table, betting between $2K, $5K per spot. In less than an hour, he was more than $60K down, and it wasn't the first time he'd lost that much in one visit. He asked my floor supervisor to ban him from the casino so he couldn't play anymore, but by the time the pit boss had the paperwork ready, he refused to sign it. That was the last time I dealt with him, but he continued to play at our casino throughout my time there. Second was a friend of mine. I was at an empty blackjack table on a Saturday night, empty because every shoe was super cold. My friend walks up and wants to play. I tell him how bad the cards have been running. He doesn't care. I tell him I can't deal with him, because it's against the casino rules, and tell my floor I've known the guy since I was 6. The floor is okay as it is anyway. 16 hands in a row he lost a $25 bet, then bet his last $100 on the 17th and lost again. To this day, more than a decade later, he holds it against me and somehow believes I had something to do with it. A friend used to work at a casino in Las Vegas. He said one day, a woman came in and gambled away about $30,000, which was her family's life savings, all their money, and also her son's college fund. A few hours later, my friend goes on his break and stumbles on the lady and her son, around 17 to 18, in the parking lot, and the kid is absolutely livid. He's screaming at her, calling her every name in the book, yelling that she ruined his life and he now can't go to college because of her, she's now dead to him, etc. During all this, his mother is bawling like a baby and pleading with him to stop yelling at her and saying that she's sorry. My friend had to call security when the kid started to assault her, punching her, slapping her, pulling her hair, etc. When they arrived, though, they saw him drive out of the parking lot and nearly, possibly deliberately, run over his mother as she, blood just gushing out of her nose, was lying on the ground and shrieking for him to stop. Very disheartening, my friend said. Well, that's enough Reddit for tonight.